I'm going to share with you perspective from 10 different XRP chart analysts, and you're going to see a recurring theme here. Almost every single XRP chart analyst that I follow thinks that either the breakout will ultimately come, or perhaps what's unfolding right now is immediately preceding the breakout for XRP. And then look, XRP, over the last 24, 48 hours, it's not like it's been bursting insanely upwards, but it did reach as high as $2.66 just a bit earlier today, at a time where, over the last couple of days, most of the market's just been kind of moving sideways. And it has been nice. We've seen a little bit of life breathe into Bitcoin. I mean, here you can see as I record this video, the XRP is $2.61, Bitcoin up a little bit, $113,347. Look, I still firmly believe that the best is yet ahead. Now, that said, there are a couple, and I mean literally two, chart analysts that I follow who are urging caution as it pertains to XRP and thinking that there's a very reasonable chance it'll go to the downside. Those are minority opinions, and they are so rare that I'm going to make a separate video entirely dedicated just to them, because I'm certainly not afraid to show a negative perspective. Sometimes the minority opinion actually is correct. Usually it's not, but sometimes it actually is. And I just want to present the information and analysis from all these chart analysts to you, and you can come to your own conclusions about. So take for what it's worth here. Just my humble opinion is that what is most probable, though not certain, is that we are going to see a continuation to the upside. We will see a euphoric blow off top. And for tons of reasons I keep highlighting on this channel, not the least of which is the fact that the top indicators that we've seen for every single other market cycle have not happened yet. So is this time different? Those are famous last words, so I'm going to guess no. So is this the breakout? We'll find out together, but a lot of analysts think so. But before I off by sharing this article from Cointelegraph, it's titled, ISM Manufacturing PMI Suggests Bitcoin Cycle May Extend Beyond Historical Norm. Well, this is something I've been talking about a lot over the last couple months in particular. And I'm well aware of this thesis thanks to Raoul Pal, who was mentioned in this article, by the way. And I've been sharing this thesis on this channel for probably close to a year at this point. I mean, it's already almost November in 2025 here. So yeah, it's probably been close to a year that I've been sharing this. And now that we're at the end of the year, all the people who are like, yeah, we're not seeing bearish indicators here. All they can do is fall in line with this and be like, well, I guess the cycle's extending then, because if they genuinely don't see, bearish indicators in the charts, what can you do but say this is taking longer than it ever previously has? It's no longer a 4-year cycle. It must be extending. And so with each passing day, it seems that much more likely that, yeah, this actually is a notably extended cycle. Now, Raoul Pal thinks that you're not going to see a peak until either the first quarter or second quarter of 2026. So if that's the case, we do have to wait a little bit longer, but not that much longer. It's not like we have to wait through a multi-year bear market, and suffer through that before we finally see some action. Things move faster towards the end of the market cycle, even if it's longer than it ever has previously been. And I've been talked about many times, the core components of this thesis, which has to do with debt refinancing, and as a result, how that impacts the business cycle. Now, ISM manufacturing here, that's actually a component of the business cycle metric. So there are multiple components in the business cycle metric. They're just talking about ISM manufacturing in this particular article, but that is a crucial metric of the business cycle. So it's certainly worth taking a look at this individual component. So let's go ahead and run through this real quick here, because again, the big question is, like, if you're like me and you just care about XRP and your altcoins and where it's going to go price wise, and that really is what I care about. I'm not as excited about Bitcoin. I just know the asset class moves in tandem. Like, you'll want Bitcoin to blast off. And if this thesis is correct, if this idea is correct, it is coming. So anyway, piece reads as follows. The Institute for Supply Management, that's ISM, Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, PMI, has historically aligned with major peaks in Bitcoin's market cycles, a pattern that is plausible at a minimum. And I don't know for sure if it's accurate, but yeah, I do think it's a reasonable thesis here. What's interesting is that this is increasingly becoming accepted. I mean, Cointelegraph is covering it right now. This is now becoming a mainstream idea in crypto media and in social media for everybody that's in crypto. Piece continues. The correlation between the ISM PMI and Bitcoin's price was first popularized by Real Vision's Raoul Pal and has since gained traction among macro-focused crypto analysts. All three past Bitcoin cycle tops have broadly aligned with this monthly oscillating index, analyst Colin Talks Crypto noted, referencing the recurring overlap between Bitcoin's market highs and the PMI's cyclical peaks. If that relationship holds, Colin added, it would indicate a considerably longer cycle than Bitcoin cycles typically run for. And the reason it's important to note this is because, yes, 4 years, historically, yes, there's been 4-year cycles. That's been a thing that's worth noting. And so you can kind of just look at that metric historically and be like, it's probably going to be another 4 years. But what's more important to understand is what is causing the timing to be every 4 years. And it has to do with debt refinancing. It absolutely does. And the reason it's been so cyclical, it's because it's been like clockwork ever since the great financial crisis in 2008, because all these firms were refinancing at the same time. And so on the low end, it could have been 3 years. On the higher end, maybe 5 years, and it averaged out to about 4 years. And then because of COVID, it actually stretched out even further because that changed the way that money was flowing through the entire system. That's the core. That's what the thesis is. And so if that's correct, and as with each passing day, it looks more plausible, then yeah, you're still going to see this crazy blow off top. There's so much money flowing through the system. Why would it not find its way to risk on assets like equities and crypto? I mean, it's totally reasonable. Anyway, the ISM manufacturing PMI, which measures U.S. industrial activity, has remained below the neutral 50 mark for 7 consecutive months, signaling contraction. A sustained move above 50 would suggest renewed economic expansion historically associated with stronger Bitcoin price performance. Earlier this year, the PMI briefly climbed above 50 before slipping back into contraction territory, underscoring continued weakness in the manufacturing economy. So take for what it's worth, but my for fun guess is that the best is yet ahead. I don't make price predictions myself, but if you're asking me what I think is probable directionally, yeah, I find it hard to believe that this is all over and this time actually is different, and all the alarm bells that sound at the peak of every other cycle, they don't work anymore. Okay. And if that ends up being the case, I'll accept and be like, wow, I was wrong. I'm very surprised by this, and we'll do a deep dive and look at what the hell went wrong and why everything's different. But I doubt this time's different. I really do. Here's a post from chart analyst Credible Crypto. He is insistent that Bitcoin's going to blast above $150,000. He believes that XRP is likely going to peak between $20 to $30. He has not changed his perspective based on anything that's happened recently. But so he shared this post yesterday. This is his most recent post about Bitcoin, which of course leads the market. And he said some decent progress so far with this idea and still expecting the same over the coming days/weeks. If we manage to get to the fair value gap in blue, so that'd be $116,000 to roughly $120,000 price range. He says that will be the first real test, as would expect an initial rejection from that zone. And then if we can hold the higher low, can look for continuation to the highs. For now, would expect range lows to hold on any retests for continued relief. So he's thinking we could go a little bit lower first, even down close to $107,000, up closer to $118,000, $120,000 perhaps, back down a little bit. And this would just be normal chart progression stuff. That's why he's saying this is roughly what he suspects. Not that it'll play out perfectly like this, but something like this. And then rocket up higher and get above the all-time high of close to $126,000. And then it would be off to the races. So it doesn't happen necessarily as quickly as everybody wants, but it does happen ultimately. Unless this time's different, but I'm not counting on that. Here's a post from chart analyst Mustache. Crypto total market cap excluding Bitcoin. So this is the Total 2 chart. That's the name of this. So altcoins. It says, did you know that Total 2, dancing on a trend line that has been in place for more than 8 years, now is not the time to be bearish on alts. Legendary months lie ahead for this market, in my opinion. Timing is always difficult, but I think we're close. So that's a perspective from chart analyst Mustache, and I don't find that to be remotely unreasonable. Here's a post from chart analyst Mikey Bull Crypto. This is the others chart, so it's the top 10. It's the top 125 coins by market cap, excluding the top 10 by market cap, so a bunch of altcoins. He says, trap the majority into believing that alt season isn't coming, then boom! Notice the similarity in 2021 alt season. So he's saying information-wise, what's playing out right now is the same thing that happened last cycle. It's just happening again, and we are going to burst to the upside. And this is the popular opinion amongst analysts that I follow. I know that more recently, it's very popular to be bearish right now. It's just fascinating that almost all of the analysts that I follow did not flip their bias to bearish just because of the liquidation event, so on and so forth. But so many analysts absolutely have. They're just flying by the seat of their pants. Here's a post from the Great Matsby ETH BTC chart. He says, trading pair is bottoming out, which means ETH is about to continue to outperform Bitcoin again soon. Well, I hope that happens because XRP is going to follow, right? Let's talk about XRP for the entirety of the rest of the video. So if you can hang with me a bit longer, the rest of the video is all XRP. You're going to want to see what these analysts have to say. Broadly speaking, there are lots of analysts that are expecting double-digit price action for XRP this market cycle. Nothing has changed on that front. Here's a post from on-chain analytics firm Sentiment. It says XRP is at $2.60 after a plus 4% day. We've seen some retail FUD across social media indicating small wallets are selling off. During this $2 to $3 price stretch, high crowd predictions of XRP under $2 is a buy signal and above $3 is a sell signal. And you can see they're showing price action going back to into September here. And you can see what the crowd expectation was. They're calling for above $3, and they said that's greed, that's a sell signal. And then ultimately when it flips more like where we are right now, crowd expecting XRP to fall below $2, that's fear, that's a buy signal because, the typical lemming retail expector, they get wrong-footed consistently. As a group, the typical lemming retail investor, they're just wrong. An individual people can learn and do better. We all can. But as a group, no, that's never changing. It's just never going to change. Absolutely. Because there's always new people that are going to learn the hard lessons. So here we are. And it's just so funny how they behave completely differently than the smart money. The people who are rich, they stay rich. They're rich because they stay rich, broadly speaking, because they behave differently. They buy and then they hold, and they just don't acquiesce when there's fear in the market. They just don't. Here's a post from a popular chart analyst, Jake Wujestic. I might have said that right. 365,000 followers on X. Got an XRP USD chart here. And he says, XRP starting to make a strong move up off this volume shelf. And so it's one more analyst with a vote of confidence here, indicating, hey, it looks like things are getting hot, which is why I kind of opened the video. One of the things I said is, is XRP breaking up? Posing that question because, yes, you'll see, there are lots of analysts that think that what's happening right now shows notable strength, and that's actually what's going to happen. So that means, of course, as long as Bitcoin plays ball, because if Bitcoin falls, so goes the rest of the market. Everything would crater, including XRP. And there are some analysts I follow that do think Bitcoin could fall in the short term, but none of those analysts that are calling for that are saying that we're likely to enter a bear market, except for one, actually. Here's a post from chart analyst Crypto Wizard. He says, second wave, isn't it beautiful? XRP is reaccumulating exactly as it did in the 2017 cycle. A second wave is coming, and it will be parabolic. Above $3.65, the fun begins. Patience pays. And he's highlighting something that I've been talking about for years and years and years. And this is a brand new post just from the afternoon yesterday. You can see 2017 on the left, and you can see on the right chart, that's where we are right now. You get your first major move up, where I moved my mouse in 2017, move sideways, then the final burst, and then that's it for the cycle. We haven't had the final burster. We had that first leg up late 2024, moving sideways, waiting for the final one. So, and this is why I started the video off the way I did. And I'm just noting, more and more crypto media outlets are recognizing this. More people on social media are accepting that the cycle is probably lengthening. And the more time passes, the more I think that's probable. So we'll see if it comes to pass. But it does, certainly, don't you think? It seems more plausible to me, more probable, in fact. But anyway, that's the reason I wanted to highlight that first, that ISM data in the business cycle, because if it's lengthening, then the fact that, the previous cycles, XRP only consolidated for half a year before the final burst after it had its first burst. I understand it's been almost a year at this point since the initial burst, but if the cycle really is lengthening, then that doesn't mean anything's broken here. There's just like a slight delay. Now, if the whole market were rampaging to the upside and then XRP weren't playing ball or it was going down or something like that, and we were in the midst of alt season, at some point I'd get concerned. But that's not what's happening. That's definitely not what's happening. We haven't had alt season yet. We're not in alt season. It just looks primed. The market looks primed for it. Here's a post from the Great Matsby. He says, XRP is about to make a lot of bears angry with another successful monthly candle close coming soon above the 0.886 fib at $2.25. There's nothing better than previous resistance flipping to support. So there you can see another analyst, very optimistic for the future for XRP, and he is one of the many analysts I follow who absolutely accurately called XRP breaking out this market cycle. 100% correct about that. It has rampaged higher since November of last year. Here's a short post from Charting Guy. I shared this in the evening yesterday. He said, XRP is still not bearish. A simple post here, but wanted to share it, and it's displaying his conviction that, not bearish, and he certainly obviously believes that ultimately XRP goes much, much higher. And it has been doing well over the last 48 hours in particular, so I can understand why chart analysts are paying particular attention to it right now. Here's a post from Cantonese Cat chart analyst. It says, XRP weekly Ichimoku cloud. It says, resistance flipped into support, which is bullish. And this is another post from yesterday. And so you see what I'm highlighting, like, this is almost all I can find. And like I said, I'm going to make a separate video dedicated purely to the bear view because it's just so rare. It is so rare. It's hard for me to find, especially from reputable analysts, it's hard to find bearish perspective right now. But I did. In fact, there's one analyst who I'm really going to mostly focus on. I'll probably make it my very next video. A very reputable analyst. He's very pro XRP. He's in our community. He's been bullish when others were not. Many others were not. He absolutely believes that XRP is going to rampage the cycle, and now he's urging caution. He's like, guys, XRP's not looking so hot right now. It's a rare perspective though. So he gets all the credit in the world if he ends up being correct about where he thinks this is likely to go in the short to midterm. And I don't know if it'll come to pass, but again, this is why I said what I said earlier in the video. It's not to scare anybody. I just want you guys to be armed with information, because it is true that normally the minority viewpoint out of the analysts that I follow is not correct. Rarely it's correct. So it will happen sometimes. I just want you guys to be aware of all these points of view from these analysts. Here's a post from chart analyst Zoom. It says, XRP moving closer to the battle zone. Once the $3 zone has been reclaimed, a move to all-time high should be quick if the market as a whole looks good. Yeah, and that's always how it goes down. And as long as the rest of the market's good too, but if we're going to have an event that causes everything to tank, don't expect XRP to just randomly rampage to the higher, even if in the charts it looks good. The market moves in tandems, my friends. Like it is what it is. Here's a new post from this afternoon from chart analyst Stepis Crypto. He says, XRP flipping the previous bull market top into new support. So he's comparing roughly where we are now to resistance in 2021. He's saying, what was resistance? Yeah, it's actually holding that support. It's not, looking back, there's nothing structurally that is broken in the charts. That's what I keep seeing from analyst after analyst here. Here's a post from chart analyst CW says, XRP is getting closer to its first selling wall. And that would be at $2.85. So just a matter of time here, so far as I'm concerned. I think that's what's most probable anyway. You guys can tell me what you think, but I'll just say, like, even if the market goes down, which certainly could happen, I don't pretend to know, but even if it does, that in and of itself, unless something crazy disastrous happens, like even if there's a pullback, that in and of itself doesn't mean that the cycle's over. I don't really see analysts that I follow broadly stating such things. There's a lot of optimism here. I'm just very careful about the analysts that I regularly follow. And no analyst is going to be right about everything. They're all going to be wrong from time to time. But that's why I treat each individual analyst as a data point. And usually when they mostly think about the same thing, they're almost always right. When all or most of them are saying the same or similar things, they're almost always right. And right now, almost all of them are saying, guys, we're in a bull market still. Even if we pull back, we're still going higher. So that's not a guarantee of what's going to happen, but it certainly brings me confidence because I've been following these analysts for so long, and they do, broadly speaking, have some pretty damn good track records. So anyway, I'll wrap up here. You guys let me know what you think, but look, at some unknown point in the future, my conviction is, you just wake up one day and XRP's rampaging higher, and you control the parts that you can control. Like I always say, you can't control when that happens, but you control whether or not you have exposure to the market when that happens. That's just how it goes. And so for me, that just means HODL life, son. That's it. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say, right? That would be a very, very, very bad idea.